Welcome to Buying Sandlot. I'm Kyle Pagan along with Kyle Scott. On today's episode, we're talking to Brandi Dowell, co-founder of the Bennett School, an elite baseball academy that merges AI-powered curriculum utilizing the 2-hour learning model made popular by the Alpha School. In this interview, we talked to Brandi about the school's early days, the AI curriculum that has student-athletes learning 6 times faster than the average student, the baseball facilities, and tech they're using to track verifiable data for the next level. Stick around after the interview as we react to the cutting-edge ideas Brandi discussed. But before we get into the show, tickets for our Buying Sandlot Summit in Philly on April 14th, 15th are still available. Get those over at buyingsandlot.com or the link in this show's description because we've got an amazing set of speakers you won't want to miss. Check out the newsletters. We'll be announcing more every week as we get closer to the event at Ballers. We also want to thank sponsors like Event Connect, who help power the show and help us continue to show up in your inboxes and podcast feeds. Now, let's get into the interview. We're here with Brandi Dowell, co-founder of the Bennett School. Brandi, thank you for joining Buying Sandlot today.
Thank you guys for having me. This is exciting.
Thank you for turning around so quickly because it's such an interesting model you guys are doing down there. Can you give an elevator pitch on what the Bennett School is and how you're using the Alpha School to handle your AI-powered curriculum?
I can. So I guess just to give you a little bit of background about me, I'm a commodities trader for the better part of 30 years and spend kind of my entire day in financial markets, and obviously the AI revolution that is upon us kind of consumes everything from equities to literally the trajectory of commodity demand on the power curve and all of that. So that, obviously had my attention for a long time. I'm also the mom of 4 boys. So that consumes a lot of my mental energy as well. Our oldest is now a sophomore at the University of Texas. And then I have a senior, a freshman, and a 7th grader. And for quite some time, just school and sports and all of the things that we have to juggle was really kind of at a breaking point, I would say. And for not just the kids, but kind of the family time and the time that we got together and all of that. And then, on the learning side of schools, the data shows that we're not really getting the job done as kind of a country right now. And there's a lot of different reasons, and, we don't need to get into all of those. But at some point, you kind of feel like, God, the system is failing our kids. But as a parent, eventually that turns into, I feel like I'm failing them. So my husband and I, when we first learned about the Alpha School, we both were like, God, that just makes so much sense, and if you guys don't already know, but maybe your audience hasn't been exposed to it, Alpha School is based in Austin. That's kind of their flagship campus. But the academics that they do there is an AI-based software platform with a suite of educational apps. But what makes it so unique is that they use the AI to figure out what each individual kid knows and what they don't know. And they go back to fill the knowledge gaps and the holes from previous grades. And then once they have that solid foundation, the pace of learning is just so efficient. It takes off and it's very rapid. And they do all of that really in just about 2 hours a day, 2 to 2.5 hours a day. And so I reached out to my partner, Greg Bennett is my current partner in the Bennett School. The reason I reached out to him is he's the founder of the 12 baseball program, which our boys had played for years, a select baseball program. They've got probably 2,000 athletes now between baseball and softball. So I reached out to him just to say, hey, I want to make this education change. I was really thinking I might just do the Alpha Anywhere, which is an online kind of at-home school program. So at first I thought I just need to somehow get a baseball team together so that my kids can still do that part. And he said, well, always wanted to start a school. I've actually been working on business plans and, looking at it for several years. So, you know, maybe we just start a school. And so then I reached out to the Alpha folks and I was like, look, I think we can put a baseball team of kids together. Can you guys work with us? Like, where, help us figure out how to bring this to this group of individuals. And they have just taken that ball on the Alpha side and run with it.
It's seventh grade to seniors in high school, correct? That are at
That's
Bennett?
right. That's right.
Okay.
So we're 7th through 12th grade. 7th grade is kind of where we started, first of all, because that's the age of my youngest child. So I was like, we've got to go at least that low. But also it's when they make that transition to the bigger baseball field, and kind of when you do start to see a little bit of, trickling out of some kids maybe decide not to play baseball. And so that's where we are currently, is 7th through 12th grade. And we've now got a little over 50 kids enrolled. We started the year with 27. So it's grown a lot, and we are getting really inundated with applications. So it's good problems to have, but we're growing pretty rapidly.
Brandi, let me ask you this. So, as a father of two boys, first of all, Godspeed. I couldn't imagine having four. But when people come to you guys, right, and when you were initially thinking about this, obviously it seems like baseball first with this cutting edge. And I've read a little bit about Alpha School. Probably can get better up to speed on it, but with this cutting edge learning curriculum. What do you view as like the primary objective for the kids in the program, right? Is it to go on to D1 and really further the baseball careers? Obviously, academics, I think everybody understands, have to be a fallback for kids who don't have pro aspirate or aren't able to make the pros and things like that. So like, how do the parents who come to you guys, I guess, what outcome are they looking for? Because I know, like, for example, like, of course, IMG comes to our mind. Kyle was actually down at IMG last week, and they sort of also celebrate the fact that, like, hey, we have great athletes, but on the flip side, we also send kids to Ivy League schools who don't always wind up playing sports. So, like, there's a balance there. How do you guys think about it, and what are parents demanding of you guys early on that you're seeing?
So I would say the majority of these parents and kids, baseball is the priority. For me personally, the education piece of it was a big driver, but I think my motivation for that really was the name of the software is Time Back. It really does give the kids and families their time back. So instead of having to get up at 5:30 in the morning to go to a 6 a.m. workout before school and then go sit what I call being held hostage in the classroom for 6 or 7 hours a day, and then going to your high school baseball practice, and then coming home and still feeling like you didn't really get the reps in that you need for your goals, and having to go do that. And then you have homework and all of that. So we're really trying to prepare, particularly these upperclassmen, for what's next, which is college baseball, or, we have several legitimate draft prospects also. So maybe it's heading to minor league ball. And high school baseball is great for a lot of things, but the competition level is hard to get, really, to prepare you to go. I mean, you guys know, I'm sure it's never been harder for, a college freshman to show up on campus and get a spot on the field. So what we're trying to do, Greg has put together an incredibly competitive baseball schedule where we're playing the IMGs. We're playing, we opened our season with Barb High School in Louisiana. So we're playing just really top level talent. So our hitters are getting to see the best arms in the country. Our pitchers are facing the best hitters. We have enough really elite level talent that nobody's having to throw more than they need to. We're not chasing a state championship. We're really trying to push ourselves. We're not looking to go undefeated. We want to be challenged. We want the kids to grow and develop
What does the schedule look like day to day?
Their days are structured very similar to college, even starting at 7th grade. So they have this couple of hours of academic focused time. Then they move to strength and conditioning. They do individual kind of group skill work, whether it's, infielders working on the field or outfielders or in the cages or pitchers doing their, special workout stuff. And then we do a team practice in the afternoon, and then they're done by 3:00. And the afternoons and evenings are their own too. We've had more family dinners in the last 6 months than we have in 5 years, probably. But we have a staff of tremendous coaches that are really honing their baseball skills. And then the schedule is really testing. You don't always know where the holes are in your game individually or as a team until you really are tested, and that exposes some things. And we're trying to expose those weaknesses so that we can address them and get them better, so that they show up to their D1 school that they're committed to, and have a legitimate chance to be on the field and play. There's no guarantees, but that's kind of our goal and what we're trying to do.
I know people are going to listen to this and think 2 hours of school isn't enough, AI powered curriculum not enough. What do you typically say to the detractors? I'm sure there are many out there. And is there any data you can give us kind of behind all this when you do clap back at those detractors, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, so data is really a key factor, which then it really requires pretty little discussion, because we actually do map testing, which all of the public schools do as well. So we did map testing at the beginning of the school year in August, and then we just did our mid-year testing in January. And our data tracks very much what Alpha School, has had to show historically, and even more so because we had kids coming in. We had some students coming in like the 20th percentile in some subjects that in January had jumped to 69th percentile. So they're making huge progress. The growth is exponential. And that's, Alpha School and 2 Hour Learning say the kids learn at two times the traditional school rate. Well, our kids were learning at 6 or 7 or up to, I think the high end on one subject for one student was over 11 times the growth that the national, 50th percentile student was growing. So it works. That was a huge relief for me as a mom, and also just kind of from this whole school effort is, yes, here's the data. These kids are growing and learning. And if anybody really honestly thinks that it takes the 6 or 7 hours in the classroom for the kids to learn what they're learning in the school day, then I definitely encourage them, to look at this, because it's so much more efficient. It really only takes 20 to 30 hours to complete an entire grade level of one specific subject. For the high school AP classes, that might be more like 30 to 40 hours. But we've been operating on a system where they're like punching a time clock. It's like you just have to be sitting in a chair for this many hours and this many days to move to the next level. And so this really just kind of reimagines what education should be.
2 questions for you. So I'm largely, probably, I'm sure, fall in the minority of general people who sort of subscribe to what you're saying about the school day was structured for a world where people go and work and punch a time clock and go and work in factories. And obviously the world has changed. So what are some of those benchmarks? Is it like the sort of standardized metrics that public schools strive for, and the Alpha School curriculum can get there more quickly? And then second part of the question is, I fully believe you could learn all the base, the X and O's you need to learn in under 6 hours, right? Whether it's 2 or 6 or somewhere in between, whatever. Like I'm fully in that camp. I view school, the other things that happen at school, the socialization, the interaction, kind of, picking up the well-rounded stuff. Do
Right.
you guys kind of view the sports as filling in for those other things? Like,
that is how we look at it. And I will also say we spend some time doing other kind of life skills sorts of things. We at the Bennett School put a little bit of a baseball slant to all of it. So, like for public speaking, we do a workshop on how to give a post-game interview. Just some of those things. Like some of these draft prospects are going to be headed off to the combine and are going to have to sit down with front office folks from these teams and have to get through those interviews. So we want to prepare them for that. We've got one dad that said, well, I can come do a workshop on how to change a tire. I mean, there's so many other productive things that you can do with your day. On the social aspect, it's very social. It's like we've got a great group of boys. They're all kind of passionate about the same things. They're chasing the same dream. So you've got that sort of built-in iron sharpens iron, but their day is joyful and fun. And then they have all this extra time that has been unlocked for them to go do other things that otherwise they have not had the time to do. Maybe they're fishing in the afternoon. One of my boys loves to go play golf in the afternoons with his other friends. Maybe they're spending more time with their girlfriend. It just is giving them so much more flexibility to be more well-rounded.
does the alpha curriculum there, is it always just like right at the point of challenging them? I guess like always just kind of just moving the bar just far enough so they're growing and not too short or too far over it?
That's right. So the term that they use for it is the proximal cognitive load. There's an entire team.
Sounded much fancier than the way
right.
I explained it, by the way.
An entire team of learning scientists that are, and the other thing that's just amazing about it is all of these engineers are like right on the edge of the newest, latest developments on the technology side. And so, yes, they're really trying to present material that a student would score about 85% on. So it's not too hard, not too easy. What we might in the financial industry say Goldilocks, right? Is like, it's just meeting them right where they are, and it can meet them at a different place in every single subject. So maybe this kid's great at math, but not so good at reading, or not great at language, or really good at science. And they might be working on different levels in every subject, especially in the beginning when they come in, because they're going to have different holes to fill. So each individual kid has their own learning plan. So it's almost like having a 1-to-1 ratio of teacher to student of like, okay, we're going to, and the AI obviously is so much better adapted to figure out like, okay, what's tripping them up? They've got this last little bit that they're not mastering in this particular, unit or whatever. So let's drill down on that and give them a lot more practice in that one area, and then retest, and then they're off to the races.
Let's pivot over to baseball facilities. What's the baseball facilities look like on campus? Is there any tech that you're using currently that you can kind of talk about at the Bennett School?
Sure. So we are located at Baseball USA in Houston. So if anybody's been to a youth baseball tournament in Houston, you've probably been to Baseball USA. And so from the facility standpoint, the unique thing is like most of these facilities sit idle during the school day, right? Because kids are in school. So we've leased space there. We've got 44,000 square feet of indoor space, which comprises our classroom, but then it's also got kind of loungy area, and then a bunch of batting cages, a whole workout space, which we use. The Diamond Club Performance is our strength and conditioning group. That is their location. So they operate their business there after we leave in the afternoons. So we're there Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then we've got the baseball field. There's actually a bunch of baseball fields there. We use primarily field 1, which is the biggest high school field, but there's a couple other high school fields there also. And then a lot of smaller fields as well.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at like 11, I think, from their from
Yeah,
their plans on the thing. No,
that's
it's a really
it.
cool place.
Yeah, it's a big facility. And on the technology side, we're currently installing TrackMan on the field. In the workout arena, I'm looking to probably add like a jump mat and some things like that. But we've got lasers for, timing 60s and all of that kind of stuff. And we're also kind of pretty close to adding this sort of separate pathway for our students of maybe it's data analytics, maybe it's media, and because those are all needs that we have, right? Is like we need somebody um, keeping track of the data and analyzing it and putting it in a meaningful format to share with scouts and things like that. We also need content and footage of all the games and all of that kind of stuff. So this model works for whatever you're passionate about. You can come knock out your education piece in a couple of hours and spend the rest of the day following your passion.
One of the things we talk a lot about is actually that data piece and portability for college scouts and pro scouts. What besides TrackMan, what else do you guys use? Like, we cover all these companies in the youth industry. Like, be interested to see like how you guys package it and hold it and what apps and tech you use otherwise.
So I would say that we're still kind of in the process of figuring out exactly what we want to use. We've had quite a few people approach us. We're, kind of testing some things out. I'll also say we have the benefit of having a ton of area scouts local. And so like we played a series last week against the Canada Reds, and there were 20 to 30 pro scouts in the stands for those games. And even before our season started, just post January 15th, when their kind of high school dead period ended, we have 4 or 5 scouts there on a very regular basis. And by regular, I mean probably 3 days a week. So they're coming and they're collecting their own data. They've got their radar guns, they've got their stopwatches, and all of that kind of stuff. But I would say we're definitely open. On our website, there's a little partnership inquiry form. Any of the tech that's out there, we're certainly willing to take a look at it. We obviously believe it's an important part that we need to package and format and collect what the scouts want to see. And so we're definitely interested in seeing what some of the options are.
Do you have any idea? Last one for me, at least, in terms of like end goals. It sounds like you've basically doubled enrollment this year. Where do you want to take all this? What does a successful outcome 3, 5, 10 years down the road look like for you guys?
Well, that's a good question, kind of the question of the hour, because we're getting so many applications. We're really trying to, figure out what that does look like. Obviously, for me personally, for the next 5 years, like, because that's where my 7th grader is, right? Like, I want this to be the best it can be. And for not just for my kids, but for any kid that's enrolled here. So having the growth trajectory that doesn't lose focus of making sure it's great is super important to myself and to Greg as well. Culture is really important to us. Keeping it's elite baseball, but it's also kind of elite human beings and keeping that culture sound. I will say what might interest some of your audience is, the youth sports market is big, right? 40 to 50 billion dollars or whatever. The education market is $1 trillion or more, right? So we are super early in like I do believe education will be revolutionized, whether it's this alpha school model or not. I believe that this is a great way to do it, but that piece of it I think is super fluid and we're really early, so kind of figuring out what that looks like as well. From a facility standpoint too, it's we'd love to expand to other sports, all of that, but you've got to find co-location of classroom space and baseball fields and maybe football or soccer or a gym. So that the facilities piece of it is an important question.
It's all self-funded?
So far, yes. And
we have lots of investors in our audience and who are coming to our event in a couple of months. So it's good chance to give the pitch there.
Yeah. So, I really wanted to start this in a way that it's a disciplined business model, right? Like if you have a bunch of money laying around, it's easy to find ways to spend it, but the math equation has to make sense long term. And ultimately somebody's got to pay for it. So until we can figure out a way for sponsors to feel like they can get their money's worth or whatever the case may be, ultimately that cost goes back to the families. And we are IMG like in a lot of ways, but we're not charging $80,000 a year. So this first year, in fact, our tuition is $15,000, but this first year we gave out $10,000 scholarships. So it's super affordable. Now in Texas, we have the Texas School Choice vouchers that are rolling out for next school year that families are able to apply for. That should give them a little over $10,000 to put towards tuition for school. So that's going to be helpful. We're really looking for kids who want to play, professional baseball ultimately, or at least D1 baseball. And we don't want the barrier to entry to be financial. So this so far self-funded, but we've got a lot of students and a lot of applications. So there's definitely the ability to add bells and whistles, but the facilities piece is going to be the one that requires kind of a big injection of capital if we want to, have our own place.
Anything else, Kyle?
No, it's fascinating stuff. I mean, we write about and talk a lot about these tailwinds. I think you touched on in education space getting disrupted, the amount of AI being able to make learning more efficient, and then how do you fill those hours of the day, in this case with sports, like three big tailwinds and high-level topics we always talk about. So super fascinating stuff. Would love, 6 months, a year from now, would love to talk to you again and understand, because it sounds very much, you guys are putting the plane together while you're flying it, and it's flying. Right. It's flying, right?
That's
Would love to check back in, as time progresses and see, how you guys are structuring things, because you're definitely on the cutting edge of what I think will be the bleeding edge of a trend that we'll be here to cover for the next however many years. So good stuff.
Yeah, keep us in mind. We'll be excited. We'll be rooting for you. We'll be following along the entire journey and everything. So thank you so much, Brandi Dowell, co-founder of the Bennett School. Appreciate you coming on. All right, Kyle, we just got off the interview with Brandi Dowell, co-founder of the Bennett School. A lot to react to, a lot of buzzwords, a lot of things that really I think people, perk their ears up when they're in this industry, disrupting technology, disrupting school, youth sports, baseball, elite player academy, AI. Where do you want to react to first?
Yeah, I have a lot. I took a lot of notes here. I am at both extremes of this one. And if people who watch the video and the interview probably at times saw like me nodding along, and at other times you could probably see the skepticism in my face, And I'm like split down the middle as to how I feel about this. On one hand, I agree that the education industry is, first of all, massive and will get disrupted, and AI will change the efficiency with which people are able to learn. I love this proximal cognitive load. I got to write this down, right? But it's basically where you're setting like the challenge level just out ahead. Imagine somebody running with a carrot on a stick ahead of them, right? And you're always just reaching for it. It's not so far ahead that it's overwhelming and frustrating, but you're not clearing the bar. And I think one of the trends in education that at least I've been reading about is it's very hard to tailor the sort of existing model of education so every kid is just appropriately challenged. AI is really good at that. So I'm in agreement that that's a huge change. And we've talked a lot on here about, okay, well, if you can learn more quickly, then how do you fill the rest of the hours of the day? The answer isn't just going home and playing video games and being on your screen all day. That sounds terrible. So in this case, they're saying, well, we're going to fill it with sports, and we've talked about this. So like all of these trends, I'm super bullish on, and I do think she is at the bleeding edge of a disruption of the way people think about their kids' school days. What would be the traditional school day time? Lots of interesting ideas, and we could dig into each of them. On the other side, as a parent, I am very wary, just with my own kids, about putting them at the bleeding edge of anything. Because a lot of times when there's huge disruption and change in any industry, 5-10 years down the road, you learn that, well, some of these things were directionally accurate, but some of those changes were actually very harmful. Social media and smartphones, a great example, right? They've changed the world, probably net for the better, but we've also learned now over the last 10 years some of the problems with screen time, how it affects the brain, and it's disrupted governments around the world. There's like lots of negative externalities of new technology. Same reason I didn't get an electric car, right? I want to make sure like they iron out the problems with the battery and self-driving, those sorts of things. Like there's certain things I personally don't want to experiment with, certainly with your kids' education. So good on the parents who are trying this, but like I of course as a parent would be wary of that. And then we talk about specialization and some of the downsides of specialization. This school's starting in 7th grade. Like you are in baseball. I would love to hear your take, because you just spent some time at IMG, how they think holistically about the person. Because I worry a little bit like, hey, you have a 13-year-old here who is now locking himself into baseball. Sure, he is covering the academics, but at the same time, all the extracurriculars seem like they're pretty baseball focused. So fascinating stuff that we could touch on each, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just down at IMG Academy this weekend, and it is the gold standard. It is not only 5-star athletes on the court, on the fields, it's 5-star athletes from faculty to hotel employees. I mean, it was an amazing crash course into youth sports and kind of where the elite youth sports academies want to be. I would agree with you on the terms of, am I a little weary on 2-hour school, AI-powered curriculum? I am. I think IMG does it very well with the 4 hours for school, 4 hours for sports. And I think they are very comfortable with that when I've talked to a lot of their executives, that they think that is the correct approach to it and enough on each side. I will say that I was going to ask this, but I didn't. I think we ran a little long, so I didn't want to, ask another question. But the mental health side, I think IMG does a great. They do awesome with their facilities, with their strength and conditioning programs, with their technology that they have. But they also take into consideration the mental health side when you are an elite student athlete and you've got homework, you've got studying, but you've also got the pressure of being a world-class basketball player or football player or tennis player. We were lucky enough to talk to the best quarterback, the number one quarterback in 2028. That's going to be there at IMG. He's already committed to Georgia. And just talking to that kid, who I think is 16 years old, going on to his 11th grade season, he's been there since 8th grade, and you could already kind of tell the maturity in the kid. And it came through because the kid's originally from Los Angeles, left his family at 13 years old to go become a man, and you can either flounder or you could rise to meet those expectations. And he's one of those ones that I believe have met those expectations just by a 5-minute conversation that I had with the kid. And you can tell why, IMG is kind of the gold standard of that stuff, because they took this kid at 13 when he was formidable, when you can mold him and everything. And they were able to make him into the man, into the number one quarterback, and not just have, be good on the field. He's good off the field as well, media trained as well. So I do think that's something that the Bennett School is doing. I mean, she did say that she wants to develop D1 athletes. She wants to develop pro baseball players. I would say they probably, I don't mean to put words in their mouth, but I would say they probably measure themselves a lot more on who's going to Texas, who's going to LSU versus who's graduating and going to Stanford or UCLA.
That's what I was. That was one of the things that popped in my mind too. Did you get a sense for how IMG thinks about? I know they pride themselves on kids who go to the Ivy League academically, not just for sports, right? Did you get a sense as to how they sort of view that balance as, hey, if a kid comes out of here and doesn't play sports a day after they leave, but goes on to a great school, like that's also part of our goal. I very much got the vibe here. Like, no, this is baseball with learning. Whereas my outside sense is that IMG is trying to balance some level equally academics and athletics. Any senses to compare those two things, especially when you talk about like the application process sounds like a sports tryout, right? That she just outlined.
No, 100%. But what you got to remember is IMG's been around since 1987, technically, because they were a tennis academy, but they've been able to go through like the ebbs and flows. Like I don't think anyone would disagree with me at IMG saying that like when they first started, it was a sports academy with an
same thing here, by the way. You got to start somewhere. You get single feature, single sport, and then grow.
And if you have that kind of sports success, obviously then you get those recruits, and that's how people kind of discover you. I would say around the pandemic, I think their CEO kind of spearheaded this a little bit. I think his name's Brent. Forgive me for not knowing his full name, but he apparently spearheaded kind of this change that we're an elite youth sports academy, but we also should become an elite school as well. And that's kind of where I see from the messaging, and we've talked to some of the people at IMG and stuff. They want to talk about the school as much as they want to talk about the athletics. They've hit the peak of the athletics. Everybody knows who IMG is. So now how do we do that? How do we package it all together? Like you said, you don't want your kid going to a school and then 10 years from now, they don't play pro baseball or pro basketball. And now what are they doing? What are their aspirations now from a career? I think that has been in the last 5-6 years, IMG's been big on promoting the school just as much as they've been promoting the athletics.
Yeah. Brent Richard. Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's one of those things like, as a parent, you don't want to look back and say, oh no, we made a grave mistake. We put all our eggs in the baseball basket. And this is an obvious counter to the specialization argument, but we put all our eggs in one basket now. Right? So how do you balance these things? From a business standpoint, like I said in the beginning, I think there are many trends here they are capitalizing on. A couple of things. One, love the concept of being able to use the baseball facility that is underutilized, field space, gym space, indoor facility space during the school day, right? You want to talk about like an arbitrage opportunity. You have all of these sports facilities that are geared towards people who are in school, which means between 8 and 3, 9 and 4, 9 and 3, whatever it is, they're generally pretty underused. And here now you have a school coming along and saying, okay, well, we're going to be able to use this space, probably command a pretty great rate since otherwise there's no competition today, right? Maybe as things come into balance and more schools have more athletics and they're thinking about facilities, maybe that balances out, but it's going to take years to get there. So I think from a business opportunity, if you're on the facility side, can you find these academies? We talked with San Diego and Curve Sports. It sounds like they're thinking about how to pair academies with baseball clubs, right? You see this trend. So this is an opportunity for facilities to turn on the lights during other hours of the day. And it's an opportunity for these bespoke, which is what I would classify this as, academies being able to get some field space. The ultimate goal is you want to own the facility yourself, right? If you're one of these schools. So that's interesting. The other thing she touched on is, in some ways, this opens up more hours in the day. So my natural instinct is, okay, this kid's life is now baseball in 7th grade. Is this good? But what she's saying is, hey, if we can teach them everything they need to know academically in 2 hours, we can fill the other 4 school hours with the sport And now at 3:30, 4 o'clock, they're home and their life has returned to them. And that, I think, honestly, the light bulb kind of went off for me there. It's like, oh, this is a way to unlock that, put things back into balance. They finish their day. They're academically, I think, quantifiably, I've read a lot about the Alpha School, in the same place. And now it's 4 o'clock and they have a life again. Super interesting idea there. Again, will we learn in years that, yes, maybe on the metrics they're at a certain spot academically, but there's other downsides to learning solely with AI? I think we're going to learn some, why it's not all roses, but interesting way of framing it. Hey, get your dinners back with your kid, and he still gets to play his baseball and learn. Just compressing the day.
Shockingly affordable too for right now.
For now, but again, they don't have their own facilities, right? You heard her say, like, hey, we're going to need capital to get facilities. So, IMG can command that premium because, again, you were just there. The difference between renting a baseball field and IMG is there's a wide chasm there. So I think that's a part of it. Private schools that are $30,000, $40,000 a year have huge campuses. Like, there's lots of other costs. Here it's basically a room, a laptop, and a baseball field in so many words. So I think they can get away with charging that for now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and they're trying to run a profitable business, so it sounds like they could be in the black, at the price points they're currently at.
Less chemistry in school, more chemistry on the field. There you go, Bennett School. That's your tagline for you.
I do like the idea of teaching other things through the prism of baseball. Right? I took a public speaking class in college, and it was whatever, right? But if they frame that to me as, hey, we're gonna teach you public speaking as if you're a general manager announcing a trade and taking questions from the media, like, your brain just switches, like, oh, okay, this is fun now, but you're learning the same skills. So it doesn't sound like they've really productized that or systemized that yet. But I do think that's an interesting way to teach people academic and other skills, just framing it through something they like. Again, by the way, probably something AI is good at sort of tailoring messaging and communication about.
Well, when I was at IMG, they made me sit in on an NIL class, and I thought that was really interesting because
Did you get a bag? Did you get an offer?
I did not get an offer.
No,
I think I have like 3 years of eligibility left. So if there is anyone out there that wants an over the hill 33-year-old guy with
slow twitch
muscles, but I gotta say, I looked pretty good on that video. Okay,
I looked pretty good on the hand eye. The hand eye was good.
Up and to the right, baby. One thing that we did talk about, and NIL is great because they teach that class, and now a lot of their students, especially in football, baseball, and basketball, and women's basketball, those are most of the sports that are getting those kind of NIL deals. So these kids are getting a crash course on being like, hey, listen, it's not all your money. It's taxes, it's finances, it's legality, it's all this stuff. There's rules state by state. You got to stop the contracts at the terms of their graduation date. Like, I learned so much. One thing, though, that we talked about was and this is where the Bennett School will have a leg up. This is where the IMG already has a leg up, is Saban loved recruiting IMG guys. Why did he love recruiting IMG guys? Because they were already at boarding school. They were already kind of in this college model. They were living away from their parents. They were able to acclimate more to Alabama. LSU was able to acclimate them more and stuff. That was where the approach to recruiting, we talk about it all the time, especially in baseball. Baseball freshmen are getting crushed right now. I think it was like 50. I've dropped a stat before. 15% of freshmen accumulated for the innings pitched last year in D1. Everybody's going to the portal. Indiana just won the national championship on the back of guys that were coming out of the portal and everything. So you take that, and this is where we talk about the quantifiable, verifiable data that you can say, hey, this guy can play at the next level. Don't get that 21-year-old. Don't get that 22-year-old. And also, he's lived away from his parents for 5 years. He's had to become a man, or they've had to become a woman, and they can easily kind of fit into the whole campus, to the whole college atmosphere a lot more easier than, maybe a transfer student that's, coming from a new school, or someone at a regular scholastic school that might be a senior or junior.
The consolidation here is going to be wild, by the way. I think, because you're going to have, I've never tried to run a school, right? A lot of times they're not a lot of schools are for profit, right? But I think you're going to see a lot of interesting ideas that have trouble scaling, where you have 50, 100, 200 students, and then you're just going to have bigger brands with the infrastructure, right, to come in and round them up. So you're IMG or somebody else, and you have campuses all over the country. And,
IMG ain't staying in Bradenton. I don't think so. Spire Academy ain't staying in Cleveland. I'll tell you that.
Right. And it, like, if you look at Alpha School, they're able to syndicate out their curriculum. These are playbooks. Ultimately, what these schools have are playbooks, and those playbooks can work in many other places. And so you find someone who's built up a location, an enrollment, whether it's 50 or 500 kids, they've kind of maxed out. Maybe they do need capital to get facilities. You think clubs are getting rounded up and facilities now? I could see 5 years from now that there's a buying chalkboard out there, right? I mean, I think that's going to be just hearing her talk, I'm like, okay, there's going to be dozens, hundreds of people who are going to do something similar. And then they're all going to like sort of cap out the way many clubs do, because it starts as a passion project. That you heard her, 5 years, her kid's in 7th grade. What happens after then? I think a lot of people who may start these maybe aren't super like lifelong educators, but they see a need for their children or in their area, and then somebody comes along and consolidates this, and we have universities buy these things. Like, they're fascinating. There's just like so many changes coming to the world. It's nuts. It's nuts.
They'll roll it up into the pro sports.
That's it.
They'll roll it up into college. They'll roll it up to the pro sports. It'll find a way, from youth to, we talked about it, vertically integrated kind of companies and stuff.
Yeah. I would love a world where our pro leagues do away with the drafts, right?
So like kind of, I guess MLS is
like the Europe. Yeah. Like, the soccer model is the best example of this, but think how interesting it would be. Let's just like take this thought experiment for a sec. Let's say there's no NFL draft. Or if you develop a player, you get the rights to them. There's a draft for people that don't come through a certain system. Think about the investment that would happen there, right? Let's just take the hometown Eagles. Let's say there's no draft. Say, again, I'm sure people are going to poke holes in this because I'm spitballing, brainstorming here. But now the NFL team, much like the MLS, but the dollars are way bigger in certain other sports than the MLS, right? But now you're incentivized to build your own academy, right? That has all of the things that Brandi just talked about she's doing in baseball. So now and then you have what does that do to D1 sports, right? Because you can have your own academy. Now you have the Eagles Academy playing the Chiefs Academy for 18 and 20-year-olds. And then you're investing further down the stack. To your point, MLS, largely does this. Think about the way investment would change and the way education would change. Because now to get into, everyone goes through these, they grow up through the youth level, they get to the club and travel level. Now they're going into specialized high school academies. And then that all gets squeezed through D1 college, mostly. And then you have to go through that paradigm so you get in the draft. And then the teams select you out of the draft. But if you removed that forcing function that is the draft, this whole thing gets tripped up again. Then you have pro teams come and buy the Bennett school. The Astros buy the Bennett school, right? And you skip D1 because, just the way it would change the education and sports system and how the economics go, that's how you get this vertically integrated thing where a pro team is worth tens of billions of dollars because not only do they have the team and the franchise and all the marketing dollars, but they own schools, academies, all the way down the stack. Like, again, it's a half-baked idea, but it would change. It won't happen. But it would be fascinating.
And it kind of goes back to like how much the percentage of kids go on to play pro sports. So it's like you said, it might upend D1 sports. It might not, because I had a kid, for every Kevin Sullivan that is getting loaned out to Manchester City, I had a buddy whose little brother played in the Union Academy. He didn't make it to the pros, but he went to go play at Drexel. He went to go play D1 ball at Drexel. So you can still go play D1 ball, and maybe you kind of utilize that a little. And I think IMG is doing a great job with this. They have a post-grad year now. You utilize it a little bit as a JUCO. Okay, maybe this kid's a little undersized. He goes, plays, still 3-4 years at Alabama, beefs up a little bit, gets better draft prospects. And then you can figure out kind of it, that way. Because I think, So I think like there's definitely a vertically integrated business here somewhere. Someone's going to figure it out. It's going to be amazing to see. It's down the line. I don't know if we'll be. I think your kids might be putting you in a home by the time they might figure it out. But you know what? They'll figure it out.
Really, it really is crazy. It really is.
And listen, hey, there's not many Texas commodities traders that I'll bet against. Okay, I'll tell you that. That's a crazy world out there.
Here's our headline: the Texas commodities trader who built a baseball academy or something like that. You're seeing this left and right, though. I mean, this is, again, we talk about trends here. Last thing, I know we're sort of all over the place, but we talk about trends. Mm-hmm. One of the trends we keep seeing is parents who are seeing things firsthand, and they're like, I don't like the way this is happening. I have some money. Self-funded here, right? I'm going to go do this, right? That's how a lot of these things are getting built, but those are also passion projects, right? Same way a lot of the club operators out there today that are getting rounded up, they started as a passion project. Same thing you're seeing. Parents see something, I don't like it, I'm going to build this. It's a passion project. I'm going to do it until my kids sort of graduate through whatever I'm doing, and then I'm going to sell it. The consolidation and roll-ups of this stuff is fascinating. And it's happening now, and it's going to continue to happen, and it's going to touch more important things like academics very soon.
Yeah, and if you're an investor out there, or you're someone who's interested in this, I don't think it's crazy to say if you need us to connect you to Brandi, we're more than happy to do that. This is we kind of love this newsletter, and we kind of love this podcast because it has made connections. It has gotten businesses in front of investors and PE and all that stuff. So
I've had 3 emails in the last week, people asking us to connect them, looking to sell something in youth sports, connect them with investors. So we got to productize this a little, right? We got it.
What is it? 0.25%, or what was it? 1%?
Oh, 0.25. 0.25.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, we get the beak. We get the beak wet. Got to get the beak wet here.
That's fine.
We'll productize it. There's a business after the event. We're going to put some structure around these introductions. You bet.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, whether you listen there, whether you listen on YouTube. Subscribe to the newsletter, and go get your tickets for the Buying Sandlot Summit. It's right around the corner, people. Less than 2 months. Tickets are moving fast. We got a great bunch of panels, great people that are going to be there. A lot of networking, a lot of padel, a lot of pickleball, a lot of golf simulators, state of the art ballers. You can't beat it.
See you there.